You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. It was a huge Saturday for LSU football. Derek Meadows, the 5-star wide receiver out of Bishop Gorman, picked the Tigers, and Jaboree Antoine, the 4-star cornerback out of Westgate, New Iberia, picked Miami. I have some thoughts on both these. Let me start with the good news, which was Derek Meadows. So Meadows, for a long time, was thought to be a Notre Dame lean. LSU got in late, got him on campus for a visit, an official visit in June, a midweek official, not even a weekend, a midweek official visit. Made their push and ultimately got Derek Meadows in the class. He is rated as high as by 24/7 as the number 32 overall prospect in the country, a 5-star. LSU's now got 18 commits. He picked LSU over Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, like the creme de la creme, right? And not only is he a big-time receiver, 6'6", 205, he's also a track star. He won the 5A state championship in the 300-meter hurdles and was one of the legs on the 4x400 relay team. Okay, so you're talking about huge dude, 6'6", 205, who runs the hurdles and sprints, right? It's a massive win. It's also like a punch in the nether region to the Notre Dame fans who were so salty, who said that Brian Kelly couldn't recruit, then to go pluck a 5-star receiver away is pretty sort of a sweet poetic justice. The interesting thing about this, LSU has aimed high this recruiting cycle. Not that they don't always, but they've aimed high with national guys at receiver and corner. And it's kind of that you win some, lose some. They had Jacorian Moore committed. He's now committed to Oregon. They took their swing at Khalil Lockett. Looks like he's going to go to Texas. They were in right there to the end on C.J. Wiley. He picked Florida State. Jamie French is a 5-star who's still on the board. It's an LSU-Texas battle. We'll see how it goes. So French is the next one to watch, along with Philip Wright. Remember, Philip Wright's the kid out of Destrehan, small, speedy receiver, committed to Michigan, but LSU got in on him late, and the thought is that before this cycle is over, he's going to end up flipping to LSU. We'll see how it goes. But when I look at receiver for 2025, it's why I think this Derek Meadows pickup is so big and why I think LSU's got to get even more. They've got Teron Francis out of Edna Carr already committed. He's a 4-star out of Louisiana. But they can't be done at receiver. And if they are done at receiver, then the portal is going to become massive for next year. Because, y'all, you're losing Chris Hilton, Kyron Lacey, very likely C.J. Daniels, Xavion Thomas, maybe Aaron Anderson as well. I mean, and that's not even accounting for whatever players may transfer out of the program. Like, if you just look at what I just laid out for you, your top returners for 2025, Shelton Sampson, Kyle Parker, Kylan Billiot, Jelani Watkins. I mean, Sampson and Parker were very little used last year as freshmen, and Billiot and Watkins are going into their freshman year this year. So the point is, you have got to add numbers, and then you've got to add experience as well at receiver after the season. So maybe that's another reason why LSU could be even more appealing for receivers in this cycle, because LSU has pumped receivers into the NFL draft, and there are reps to be had in 2025 just looking at what you're going to lose after the 2024 season. So getting Derek Meadows, look, as much as it stung having Jacorian Moore committed than losing him, it's softened by the fact that he didn't go to Texas in the SEC. He went to Oregon. You'll never see him unless you're in a playoff. But also getting a guy like Derek Meadows is huge, but you can't be done at receiver. The other prospect that made their announcement on Saturday was Jaboree Antoine, and this is one we've talked about a good bit. So Antoine is from Westgate in New Iberia, which is Corey Raymond's hometown. And he's the number 2 player in Louisiana for this recruiting cycle in 2025. Missing out on Jaboree Antoine to Miami, like there's no way around it. That stinks. It stinks. He's the number 2 player in the state. From New Iberia, right? Hometown for Corey Raymond. You bring back Corey Raymond, you expect to get guys like that. And LSU is kind of desperate for cornerbacks, not because they need numbers. Unlike receiver, they got numbers in the secondary, but they don't have his talent and experience. The good news, if you want the positive spin on Jaboree Antoine going to Miami, just like we mentioned with DeCorian Moore, it's not an SEC school. So you're not going to have to play him if he sticks with his Miami commitment. Similar to receiver, LSU keeps swinging big, right? You went after DJ Pickett, the number 1 cornerback in the country, and you got him. You threw your hat in the ring with Dorian Brew. He ultimately picked Oregon, another guy that's, another school outside of Louisiana. Here's, Jaboree Antoine, who's going to Miami. So you've aimed high at some of the highest rated prospects in the country at that position. And you look at what could be next for LSU. I mean, the guy we talked about is Aiden Anding. And Aiden Anding is out of Ruston. He's thought to be a Texas lean. LSU got in the mix, and now there's a lot of thought that he's ultimately going to end up in the LSU class. He's a 3-star, and so a lot of people look and go, But remember we talk about sometimes it's not necessarily the star rating, it's who's offered you. And when you look at Aiden Anding, it's LSU, Texas, Miami, Arkansas, TCU. Like, he's got big-time offers and big-time interest. So that's probably one of those guys that as his senior year goes along, he's going to continue to rise up recruiting boards, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up a 4-star and one of the top corners, in the country. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Aiden Anding is the guy who's likely next on that list that we'll keep an eye on. But, there's one other thing, and there's no easy way for me to say this without it sounding like sour grapes. So I'm just going to say it. But sometimes there are prospects in the state that when you're the flagship, you have to recruit and you have to offer and you have to take if they want to pick your school. And all the while, sometimes maybe the coaching staff isn't as high on that prospect as maybe other prospects. And maybe you question what their actual ceiling is. Does it map to the recruiting ranking or whatever? Sometimes that's just optics. Like, you got to get the 4 or 5-star guy in your state, right? And when I'll give you some examples, and this will make sense when I do. Remember Ish Sopsher, the big defensive lineman out of Amite? Everybody wanted Sopsher. Talked about him forever. And ultimately picked Alabama. And he, after 1 year at Bama, went to USC, and quite honestly, I don't even know what he's doing now. And throughout that whole process, because it was the big defensive tackle from Amite, like, you wanted to get him, but when you talk to coaches around the program, it was like, man, you really wonder, does that kid love football? How's it actually going to translate? And it didn't. So you were no worse for the wear, really. As much as it stunk losing the player, the prospect, you see how it played out. And I want to be clear, too. I don't mean for this to be insulting to any. High school athletes don't ask for recruiting rankings. They don't ask to be put in any of that conversation. You know this. I go to great lengths not to insult ever high school athletes and college athletes. Like, they're trying their best, man. They're young people that are trying their best. But I'm just giving you some illustration, some context here. Hootie Jones. Remember the 5 for 5 day back in the day? Everyone melted over the 5 for 5. You know the 2 you got? You missed on Tony Brown and Speedy Noyle and Gerald Willis. You know who you got? Leonard Fournette and Jamal Adams. It worked out. Well, remember the other safety you were recruiting was Hootie Jones. And Hootie Jones picked Alabama. And people were disappointed because the kid from Louisiana went to Alabama. You know who the staff really wanted? Jamal Adams. It worked out. Cardell Thomas was another. Big old dude. Was a big 320-pound guy going to playing against 1A kids at Southern Lab, was manhandling them, went to some of the elite camps, struggled, so you saw that star rating drop a little bit. But as a kid from Baton Rouge, you had to recruit. They took him, and he was a great kid. Like, he is a great kid. I don't mean anything by that. But I remember there were a lot of staff members at LSU who were pushing Ed Ogeron to take Osiris Torrance out of the Tangipahoa. It was Kentwood, and Osiris Torrance ended up going to ULL, then followed Napier to Florida, became a first-round, or maybe it was a second-round pick. He went to the Bills. I don't know if he was a first or second-round pick, but became an All-American, was a high draft pick, just starting in the NFL. Like, sometimes the star ratings, the recruiting services, sometimes they get it wrong. And I kind of get the feeling, and listen, I think LSU is going to continue recruiting Jaboree Antoine to the end of this cycle. Like, they're going to, he's the top player in the state, like one of the top players in the state. Yes, you want him in your class. Of course you do. And it's at a position where you need an infusion of talent, of ability. But I kind of get the sense with Jaboree Antoine that that's one of those where they feel like, okay, it stinks missing, but you got other options as well. And maybe a guy like Aiden Anding is someone they might actually like a little better. You love to have them both. You want options. You need better talent at that position. But I guess all this to say, like, let's just wait and see how this plays out. Because I have a feeling when we look back with hindsight, we might be okay. I mean, and of course, you're going to be okay because you got DJ Pickett. You got the best corner in the country. So we'll see how else you might supplement that class. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.